And we're recording first episode with the new microphone. So, how fitting is it that you were in the White House communications, and now you're the first guest with the new microphone? I guess our communications are jumping up a notch. So,
what a coincidence!
What a coincidence! Everyone's going to start saying, "Oh, Tommy's a government agent. Of course, he gets a White House guy on, and all of a sudden, the quality of his podcasts go up. They're still shit, but the audio quality is up.
There you go. You got good sound anyway.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So the episode we did yesterday was longer than I normally do, and which is fine. I fucking love doing long episodes. But that's why that took forever to upload. I don't think it got up until like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. So for everyone watching this who maybe didn't see that one, Mr. Beckenhauer was on yesterday's episode, and we talked about his time as a pilot in Vietnam. And today we're going to talk about his time in White House communications. And please bear with me, everyone, because I have no idea what I'm doing with this microphone. I am a caveman playing with a surgeon's scalpel. I have no idea what I'm doing. So you're just looking at me like you're an idiot.
It's working, I said, if it works, don't fix it. Right?
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to stick with, is just let this thing run. But so yeah, yesterday we talked about Vietnam, and so what all did you do in White House? I don't even know what that consists of. Why don't you just take it away?
I'll start from the beginning. The White House Communications Agency, or it's called WHCA, in the 1990s, early 1990s, before the Clintons came into office, was all military. I'm not sure how many people it was total, but when the Clintons came in, I'm not sure totally how the story went, but anyway, they decided there was too many military people working at the White House. Either the president did or the Secretary of Defense, somebody. But anyway, they made the decision to civilianize a lot of the positions. Now, the White House Communications Agency is responsible for everything in the White House that you communicate with. Mm-hmm. For instance, telephones, all your computers, all the classified computers, all of the press conference room, which is primarily used for press conferences and stuff. The Secret Service radio was the ones they speak into their
like wrist piece.
Yeah, and then you got on top of that the cell phones, and then you had pagers, thousands of pieces of equipment. And it's maintained then by the WHCA office. Now, the 18 acres, which is the complex of the White House, the old executive office building, and it's the secure area within the White House. You can't get into those buildings unless you've got a pass or some kind, or you're on a tour of some sort. You got to go through the gates in order to get into that complex. It's the West Wing, East Wing, White House itself, mm-hmm. the old executive office building. Those are the primary buildings that are in. And then on top of that, there's probably about 12 to 15 other buildings that are outside that fence. Across the street from the White House, there's a Roosevelt Park, or what does they call that park now? I forgot. I think it's Roosevelt Park. It's the one right in front of the White House. Mm-hmm. Big park there where the Colonel Jackson's statue is there. But to the left side of that, or on the west side of that park, there's a row of townhouses there that are built in the 1800s. But they all belong to the White House now. Now, the pecking order of people that worked at the White House, if you work in the West Wing, that's the highest level. The next level is, and it's mostly committees, and that work in those townhouses. And all those townhouses are wired with telephones, computers, and the work's over there. And the White House conference room is new back in the 90s when I worked there, was moved over to there. So you could enter the White House for a conference without having to bother the people at the front gate and the guards and all that stuff, and it wasn't a secure area. So there was, a conference room set up there. On top of all that, you have the video teleconference facility. The Roosevelt Room, which is right next to the cabinet level room, had a video teleconference capacity, big screen and a table monitor, microphones. You could have a meeting, video teleconference anywhere in the world. From there, you also had the situation room, which is the highly classified area, which is underground and underneath and to the north or to the south of the old executive office building. And then you got the Office of Administration, which is that's the largest, basically the travel office, all those offices that write the paychecks and maintain all that stuff, all those computers and everything in there. So there's a lot of equipment. And then you also have in the south side of the row houses there is where the Secret Service main offices are. And that's where they check in to draw their weapons, fire their weapons, and then report for duty for whatever's on there. So, and they pick up the radios and that. So our company then was, the head of one of the chiefs of the military of the WHCA group was basically, he was a full colonel, retired and came back the next day as a government contractor. Mm-hmm. And took over a lot of the responsibilities. And what they did is divided up the White House Communications Office between the military, which was responsible for everything inside the 18 acres, as well as the Air Force One. The Air Force One, of course, is an Air Force aircraft, and it's maintained and taken care of everything on it by either Boeing, Northrop Grumman has contracts to do certain things with it, as well as the Air Force itself maintains the aircraft out there. But the communication, you want to check anything out, the radios don't work on the aircraft, or the telephone on the president's desk doesn't work in Air Force One, the military takes care of that. Our company had nothing to do with Air Force One, or anytime the president traveled outside the 18 acres, the military takes over that communications. Okay. And sometimes if he went to a local hotel in town, we got called on and we'd go up and set up microphones and make sure, the LCD projector worked or anything like that was going to be used for a briefing and everything. Well, I was in the military in 1996. I was getting ready to retire. I'm sitting at a soccer game with my son, and I'm talking to a guy next to me who ends up being the full colonel that was working for WHCA. Yeah. We're just sitting there talking and waiting for the game to start, and he asked me what I did, and I said at the time I was working at the Pentagon, and I was at one of the action officers for the skiff there, and the situation or the.
Can you explain to everyone listening what a skiff is?
Yeah. And I was a medical service corps officer at the time, so that was my duty to sit in and if the general had any questions about medical service or what was happening. Yes.
Can you? Yeah, I'll, that's what I do. I've been meaning to do that. If I have a question, I'll raise my hand. Can you explain to everyone listening what a skiff is? A secure compartmentalized information facility.
Yes, a secured classified information facility.
Okay.
It's a soundproof room. It's nobody can listen in from outside the room. Every wire going in and every wire going out is monitored, so that nobody can listen to anything that's going on the inside. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what equipment that a spy can use to listen in on things.
And they can't.
I was really amazed when I was learning my job, is that you could go to a hotel room and you pull up your classified laptop and you're typing away on a thing, and a spy could check in next door, plug his computer in just to the wiring on the wall, and monitor everything you're typing on your keyboard. And they have the capability. Of course, the listening devices, they make little robots the size of a June bug that could fly underneath the door, land up on a site in the other room. It's got a camera on it, monitor everything you're doing.
Yeah, DARPA was doing that in the 70s. A lot of people don't know that. DARPA, the Defense Advanced, It's
incredible, the communications equipment that's available.
They were putting, a lot of people don't know that, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency was legitimate, no hyperbole, was putting little cameras and microphones inside bugs in the 1970s, per Annie Jacobson's book, DARPA, The Pentagon's Brain.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Well, anyway, the skiffs are, you got little sensing devices that you check to make sure that nobody's listening in, and you got jamming devices that are around that block frequencies if anybody's trying to listen in. But a skiff is supposedly a secure area, and you can't, everything going in and out of it goes through a scrambling device and that. Well, I'm sitting there talking to this guy. He asked me what I'm doing. I said, well, I'm there. And he said, well, what kind of clearances you got? Well, you got to have a top secret, of course, and you got to have an SCI, which is a secured special, what is that?
It's a special compartmentalized, yeah.
Yeah. It's you only you can know in that particular room. If you walk to another room, you don't have business over there. You're not entitled to get that information either. So it gets it to even a higher level than the top secret level. You got to have those clearances. Well, he knew what was going to happen. He was coming out, and he was going to have to hire people, and everybody in the military has got those clearances if you're working in the skiffs or working at the Pentagon where you're involved in any of that kind of activity. And he said, well, when you put your resume together, give me a copy of it. He said, I'll help you write the thing and whatever. He said, but when you get ready to get out, give me a call and we can talk. I might have a job for you. So I thought, well, what doing? He said, well, I'm working in the community. I said, I don't know anything about communications. I'm a helicopter pilot. We know. So, sure enough, I retired, and this job came available at the White House for an additional staff member, but they had to make up basically a job for me over at the Drug Policy Office, the ONDCP, Office of Drug Control Policy. And it was right about the time when Clinton was running for his second term. And if you remember, the drugs were going crazy at that time. So they needed a new drug czar. And General McCaffrey, who was the Southcom commander in Panama, was the perfect man for the job because they're running drugs out through Panama all the time. He knew the people, he knew the VIPs, he knew the presidents of those guys. He was the perfect man for the job to come in. Well, I learned real quick when I got out. I got the job anyway, and I got the job simply because I had the clearances, not because I knew anything about communications equipment. He says, "Well, we got technicians that do all that stuff." He says, "I just need you to get them in and out of these rooms. You have to have somebody you don't have to have a clearance to go in there, but you got to be with somebody that does to go into a skiff or handle equipment or pick up laptops or any of that kind of stuff. You got to have those clearances." So that's how I ended up getting the job. But the job entailed working for the Drug Policy Office to start with, and General McCaffrey coming in and needed to expand the offices where he was at. Well, his office was in the old executive office building, which is inside the 18 acres there. So I got our guys in there, and from the beginning, where he needed a telephone, he needed a secure classified phone, he needed he needed a copier, a printer, all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you a story later on about how just complicated it is just to get a typewriter into the building, or a computer into a building, or just a file cabinet.
Really?
I got a really fun story I can tell you about that.
Okay.
It's pretty complicated, but the equipment itself is most of it is non-classified. Most of the computers everywhere within the facilities are non-classified, but you have the classified areas that you have to have those particular laptops or the PCs or the radio equipment or whatever is called, that's considered classified equipment. And so my job was to facilitate getting all of those offices up and running, wired, and get the equipment for them in there, and then train the people that are going to be using them and doing that kind of stuff. So that's what I started off as for about the first 9 or 10 months. And my boss at the time was one of the chief technicians. but they didn't need a technician doing that job. They needed basically a program manager. So when I was ready and knew the area and knew what was going on with all this stuff, basically then I took over as project manager, eventually became the program manager. When the 9/11 happened, we expanded to the Office of Homeland Security, and that later became the Department of Homeland Security. Because our company had an existing contract within the White House itself, we were able to expand out into, because everything that's going to be involved with the Homeland Security Office was going to be right off the bat, was everything's top secret. I mean, even the garbage cans were top secret. You couldn't move them in and out. You can imagine the tension and the pressure that was at that. So that was later on. I started, like I said, in 1996, 2001, our company really changed. We were about 25, 30 people up until 9/11. And then once 9/11 happened, we basically, in the next 6 years, we expanded to almost 400 employees, which basically took over setting up all of the Office of Homeland Security, and then setting up the Department of Homeland Security equipment and that out at the Navy complex out on Nebraska Avenue. But my job grew basically from being a project manager within the Office of Drug Policy Office to when I became the program manager, where I took over. Our company then was growing. We took over all of the daily press conferences, which for the communications part of that, it's just setting the podium up, putting the microphone, very similar to the one you got there in front of you there right now, set that up, and then wire that back to the malt box of where the press conference or the press people could come in and plug in, and they're going to record anything or hook their cameras up. They've got sound system right from the microphone. So we had 2 or 3 employees. That's all they did was maintained all that equipment. Excuse me. That job, I knew nothing about that equipment, but by my 3rd or 4th day on the job where I was working at the Drug Policy Office, my boss sent me over. He said, well, you're going to have to learn what those people do over there. You might as well go in and sit in on the daily press conferences for a week or two and see what those guys do, and you get to know our people that work over there. That was one of my, I thought I got fired the first week I was going to work, because when I went to the press conference, you're familiar with the daily briefing, and
yes, sir.
That's what I'm talking about. But you got the picture of the White House behind you, and flags on both sides, and the press come in, and that's held on between the West Wing and the White House itself. It was the old swimming pool that President Kennedy swam in. Before that, it was a bowling alley for President Eisenhower. So there's a lot of history behind all these things. And then they covered up the swimming pool and put a floor in there, and that's where the press conference room is. It's no longer there. They've moved it over across to the other side now. But they had this podium. Well, the first day I'm there, if it's just the press secretary speaking, the seal is not on the podium.
Okay.
And if the president's going to come in and answer questions or whatever, you got to make sure his presidential seal is on that podium. Now, this is getting down to the little nitty gritty stuff that you got to do. But the important thing about a White House job is there is no room for failure.
Yeah.
I mean, you got redundant systems on everything.
Yeah.
You have the microphone there. If that microphone doesn't work, and the president walks up there and starts talking and it fails, you're gone.
Yeah, you're fine. You're finished.
Has to work. And then you got a third system usually where you can put one more up there if you need to. Well, so we got the podium, and the podium's always sitting there, but it depends on whether the president's speaking or not, and whether you put that seal on. So that's a big deal. That seal better be there when you come in.
So is it like Air Force One, where it's like any plane that the president's on is Air Force One? Otherwise, it's like a VC 2500 or something.
Yeah, it's just a
747.
747.
Yeah. Is the seal? What is this? Is it like a metal placard that you go up and hang on? Is it like a magnet?
Well, no, it's a little seal. It's maybe 10, 12 inches in diameter, and it's plastic.
Okay.
Very lightweight.
Just go slap it on.
Yeah, well, a little nail there, and you just hook it up,
Okay.
to it. and well, you got to watch those things. People love to walk off with them because they're souvenirs, big souvenirs.
I would love to have one. Getting one I can slap behind here. I would love that.
I stole that from the White House.
That's exactly what I would do.
Great souvenir to have. So anyway, we're setting up, and I'm just, fly on the wall. I don't know what's going on. And I said, well, is it ready to go? And he's the guy that's in charge there was telling me what has to be done. He says, and then I forget who he was. George Stephanopoulos walks in the door there, and he says, he was press secretary. He says, we got to have, the president's going to come in and answer some questions. And I said, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm going to get to see the president, sitting back here. That's Clinton at the time. Yeah. And so I walked to the back of the room where the malt box is set up and where our guys are sitting in a booth and running the microphones and all that. And then my boss says, well, we forgot, we're going to have to get the seal on there. And I said, well, where's the seal? He said, well, it should be over there in that cabinet in the drawer. So I pulled the drawer open, not in there. I said, oh my gosh, now it's panic. 3 minutes before the president's supposed to walk in the room. So I asked one of the guys there, the White House guys, I said, where do I get the seal? He said, I just walked down the hallway there and asked that secretary sitting at the desk down there. Well, that's my first time into the West Wing. So I walked down the hallway not knowing where I'm going, right? Mm-hmm. So I walk right down the hallway, and I walk in, and here's, what's her name, Betty Curry, the president's secretary, which is just, so she's on the phone. And she looks very annoyed when I walked in. And finally she, and I'm just standing there patiently. And I'll remind you, the day before, I'm a full colonel in the Army, and I got all kinds of power. Now I'm just a nobody. Right? I walk in, she has no clue who I am or what I'm there for. Yeah. Puts the phone back, and she says, what do you want? I was indignant. I said, well, I'm supposed to pick up the seal, And so she turns like that and says, well, just take that one. And there's one hanging on the door there. I had no idea. That's the door into the Oval Office. Right?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I just pop the seal off, run down, stick it on the podium. No big deal. We go through the press conference, get all done. Well, then I said, well, I better take it back.
Yeah.
Over, I'll take the seal back. I take it back down, and just as I'm about to hang it on the door opens up, right? Clinton sitting back there. Here's George Stephanopoulos and Leon Panetta, who I think was
director of the CIA.
Chief of staff wasn't he chief of staff or something? Anyway,
later on
he was working.
Yeah, later on he became CIA.
Stephanopoulos goes ballistic on me. What are you doing? You can't take that seal off. And I said, well, I'm just returning it. And I look over to her, thinking, well, she's going to back me up and saying, no. She just kind of looked the other way, like I
don't know what he's doing. Yeah, I told him not to take it.
Yeah, he went off on me. It's like, what the world? You so worried about the little seal on a door, that you got to get so upset about. So anyway, he said, get the hell out of here, So I walked out and go back down, and I'm thinking, well, I'm done,
It was fun.
It was nice working here for a couple of days anyway. Well, I went back and told the boss. He said, well, let me take care of damage control, So I don't know how he spun it, but anyway, I kept on working after that. But I learned a lesson real quick about the pecking order of who works for who at the office and
is
what to do and what not to do at the right time and the right place. There was
can I ask about
another incident where go ahead.
Sorry, I think we have like a 1 second delay, so I keep
okay.
But I don't know if I can ask about, or if you can answer about this. Is security something loosely similar to like an airport, where it's like once you're in, like you're good, like you don't have to be like checked to go to the bathroom. You don't have to be checked to go into like the little knick-knack store in the airport. Once you're in, you're good. So like for someone like you go pick up the seal. I mean, I'm just looking at it from someone like you find any weakness. If I'm someone that is like a foreign agent, you go pick up the seal. Well, if you go free to pick up the seal, who's to say that there's not like a shape charge on there, right?
Exactly.
It's right. I mean, the head of the Secret Service, I forget, Lou Merletti, he actually had to scold like President Clinton and Bush because they were, Annie Jacobson talks about this in her book, Surprise, Kill, Vanish. because they would take phone calls from people would hand them their phones and they say hi to my grandma, like, hi grandma, this is Bill Clinton, or like whatever. But Lou Merletti had to show them like images of like what they would do overseas, and they'd be like, dude, we give people phones with charges in them to blow their head off. Right. So that's what I'm wondering and I don't know if you can answer that.
And I can't. Basically, that's a really good question, because there's different levels of security inside the 18 acres. Mm-hmm. To get inside the initial wall, there's different levels of passes. And you see that you've got to have that pass around your neck. If you go to work one day and you forget your pass, you're basically screwed. You got to go back home and get it. But the passes that you have around your neck are different colors. And I don't know if I can remember. I know the blue one is one that gets you right into the Oval Office. You can walk all the way in without being questioned. Every door, though, basically has a guard on it, and there's layers of security as you go in. Yeah. Where the main staff, I mean, there's a total of over 4,000 people work at the White House. Not all of them work in the West Wing in the old executive office building, because some of them work over in the admin building and some of them work over in some of the side offices on the west side of the Pennsylvania Avenue there in 17th Street. But there was three different levels of three different colors of badges that you wore, and if you didn't have that right color badge, you couldn't go any further and penetrate any closer going in.
Yeah.
So the most people all had, I think, was a yellow colored badge. That got you into any building outside of the West Wing and the White House itself. The West Wing was where the top level staff, president's primary staff works in the West Wing. Vice president's offices in there, press conference rooms, all of the chief of staffs and all those are off in there. And there's not that many working there, probably 20, 25 people work in that area. Then over in the old executive office building, which is where Ollie North and all those, the National Security Agency and the travel office, some of those other offices are in that area. And that was built during World War II, or not World War II, the Civil War. That's where the original State Department, Secretary of War, and there was a third office. That building was built for that. And it's on the west side of the West Wing. It's a great big building, and it's like I said, it's 4 to 5 levels high, and it's beautiful building. It's gorgeous marble flooring, and but it's old. I mean, it's really old.
Yeah, and
they just gone through they built it for like $700,000 back in the 1860s.
Yeah, so.
And they just went through a $7 million renovation of the thing, just completely remodeled it, put in all new wiring and stuff, and modernized it for the modern communications bill. We were heavily involved in some of that with the wiring and cabling and stuff running for each of the rooms and getting in there. So anyway, that was the different levels of security when you get in. So you walk in, you got that badge, and it's visible.
Yeah.
And there's guards at every door. And those are White House police. They're not the DC police. They're Secret Service agents. That's the Secret Service job is to protect the president.
Yeah.
And that zone right there, the 18 acres. Outside of that, they protect the president when he's on the move. They completely arrange for all transportation stuff. Police department, Lincoln, like the Washington Police Department, assists them in everything outside the gate. But once they go inside that gate, the Secret Service has that mission.
So, question is, with those like inner security circles, so I mean, even if you're a police officer, they won't let you in. They don't know who you are. Mm-hmm. They don't care who you are.
You don't have that badge, or you don't have a reason to be there. Even if you have a badge, if you don't have a reason to be there, you're not. You
can't just loiter. You can't be like, I'm going to go hang out.
Yeah. The reason I could get in is because my purpose was either run wiring or cabling or install a computer, bring somebody in and out. I could get in and out, but there had to be somebody put in a request to replace a laptop or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I could bring a technician in and work on it or whatever, the job that the task was. For the daily press conference, I was allowed into that area because I was the supervisor of the men that worked in there.
Yeah. So with the, and again, it's okay if you can't answer this, with the layers of security, right? Like I have a fireproof safe next to me, fireproof, waterproof safe that has the hard drives in it that store this podcast. Shockproof, waterproof. They can just take it. Like the house can burn down and this will be fine. Granted I'm 30 now, but let's say I was 15, I can like lock the door and, tell my little brother or older brother, that's my room, you can't go in there. But that's kind of a social agreement. This is like a physical, they can break down the door and come in here, but they won't be able to get into that. And this is one thing I've always thought about the White House. Is it more of that like social agreement, like you can't come in here, you'll be shot? Or is there actual layers, like, disguised as just walls and rooms, but are there actual layers to the White House? Like you physically can't get past that wall. It's not drywall. It's like concrete. I don't know if you can answer that. Like physical walls.
Especially in the highly classified areas,
Sure.
There are barriers. I mean, say there's a break-in.
Yeah.
Guy jumps the fence.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, doors will close. Doors get locked. Everybody's got a mission that they have.
Submachine gun, yeah. And I know it's positive pressure.
Now, have you ever noticed the people walking around upstairs on top of the White House?
Yeah, the snipers.
You see them up there. There's snipers up there all the time.
Yeah.
Every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
There's on top of it. And now, since 9/11, they carry laws. I mean, they can shoot down an aircraft from there.
Jesus, that's awesome.
But they better be a good shot.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it was Lou Merletti. I could be putting words in his mouth. I don't know if he's still the head of the Secret Service, but he said they were putting like SAM sites like under the grass. They would pop up and you could take down anything. I don't know how true that is. That might be bullshit. But they also, one thing I do know is I know that there's a positive pressure in the White House, meaning there's a slightly higher air pressure. So if you open the door, air always goes out, meaning you can't walk by and just, nonchalantly throw an invisible gas can and hope that the gas goes into the White House. You open the door, the air is always flowing out.
That's true.
Yeah.
For gas, it's a gas.
Yeah.
And then, again, as you go through these different layers, doors lock. The doors get thicker the deeper in you go. There's a safe room, basically, and there's hallways that are basically bomb-proof.
Yeah.
There's tunnels, between different places. I can't tell you where.
Sure.
That's all classified. But the situation room itself is where, the morning of the attack with the American Airlines, number 11 was coming out from Pennsylvania, and they weren't sure where it was going. I might as well tell that little story. I was working that morning.
Please do. Yeah.
It had to come into the office. Basically, I was working in my office, but my office was across the street on 17th Street. But I had employees that worked inside the press conference room, but the ones I had on duty that morning were on, they run the equipment in the situation room, which is the highly classified room. And I don't know if you remember the picture where they took down Osama bin Laden and the president and Secretary of State and all that. That's taken in that room.
In the situation, yeah.
My first time I walked in that room, I was shocked at how small it is. It was, it's not much bigger than like a 14 by 20 room. That's it. From the videos, it looks like it's, the size of the Oval Office or bigger, but it's about half that size. There's about 14 people can sit at the table, and that's it. So it's a pretty small room. But to get into that room, though, there's barriers. It's a vault, basically, and it's so I don't know if it's capable of, and that's probably classified as whether it's nuclear, safe or not. But I imagine it's pretty darn secure down here.
Yeah.
That's where the vice president was at and was running the operations of the because the president was out of town that morning. The vice president was running the show at the White House. Well, I got a call right after the second tower got hit. I called my boss. I was watching TV that morning. I usually had a TV up here I was monitoring when I was working at my computer or whatever. And we had 4 guys that were working in the skiff, and they called me and said, "Hey, are you watching this?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I can't believe it's clear morning like this, and airplane hit that." I said, I just can't believe that's an accident. You know? They said, "Well, we're not treating it like that over here."
Oh, so when the first plane hit, they were
going to stand by because they have to go on full alert here, you know. So, and sure enough, about 20 minutes after that, the second plane hit. Yeah.
Sorry. So when the first plane hit, they weren't, because I know like this. I was only 11, but I know the story everyone heard was, oh my gosh, how did that happen? And then it wasn't until the second plane hit that it was okay. This is an attack. So at the White House, the first plane went in, and they said, "This is an attack."
They were on full alert. They said, "There's no way," but that's automatic. What they do that. I don't think they were aware. Of course, that it was a real attack. They was still.
They treat it like that, though.
Yeah, they're treated like that regardless.
Yeah, it's an abnormality from the norm. A plane hit a skyscraper. Something's up.
Exactly.
Okay.
That means that FEMA, at the very least, is going to be activated.
Yeah.
Which has to come from the president.
Yeah. Sorry for I know I keep interrupting you. I just get excited and I have a lot of questions. Sorry.
So where was I? Okay, so yeah. I go over to the old executive office building, and my staff member there, and that's the second building been hit. So I goes. We got the order to bring in all our staff. We have people that ran that conference room 24 hours a day, the skiff, and so you have to have at minimum 4 people. But we've got like 16 people that are qualified to run that equipment and know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And when things gear up and there's a lot going on, you need more people on telephones and making sure people are entering. There's just a lot of activity, so you need more staff down there. So I go running back to my office to make these phone calls because I got all my phone numbers and everything on my phone at my office. And as I'm walking out of the old executive building on the northwest corner, out onto 17th Street, I heard this big explosion. Saw all the smoke come up, and I looked over and I said, what the heck? Why would they hit the Washington or the Lincoln Monument? I thought from the looks of the smoke and as close as it was, you're only 2 blocks away from the Lincoln Memorial, but the Pentagon's about it's maybe a mile away, and the way that shock wave came blasting across where we were at, all I heard was the sound from it, which is an enormous explosion, and then of course you just instantly saw all this smoke coming up. Now, what the heck, and I ran back to my office and I'm doing things, and then one of my employees calls up and says, "We've been ordered to evacuate." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, we've got another airplane inbound. They don't know where it's headed, So I go running back over, and of course, I couldn't even get back in now. Everybody's been ordered by the Secret Service. They're out in the hallways ordering people out of the building. They opened up the gate on the north side, told everybody just get out of the building, because of the threat was that aircraft, the inbound aircraft was probably going to hit the there. I found afterwards that, and this is like 2 hours afterwards, they thought they had 11 airplanes were missing, and they didn't know at that time yet whether all 11 of them were been taken over or what. Of course, there was only the one, and that was the one that crashed in Pennsylvania. Went in up there. But the most amazing thing that day that really impressed me is Vice President Cheney. I've worked in skiffs for probably 15 years during Desert Storm and what's the other one called? When we invaded Afghanistan. But anyway, I worked in the skiff in Germany, and I worked at the skiff in at the Pentagon. They, and it's usually generals in there running things. And then when stuff's going down, their excitement level is, things are pretty tense. And you got to make decisions right away, and things can get real hairy. And it's, everybody's drilled, stay calm, stay calm, stay calm. President Clinton or Vice President Cheney came in that morning. I mean, he took charge better than any 4-star general I ever saw. And the guys that worked there said it's just amazing.
Really?
And he just came in. It's like, he does this every day. And I was like, okay, let's just ground every aircraft out. He made that decision basically himself before speaking to the president. Yeah. Get every aircraft. Well, that never ever been
never
done
happened in the United States. Yeah.
Yeah, and then here's the Secret Service guys. Well, how do we get a hold of air traffic controllers?
You're the military. Do it.
that call goes to the military. Yeah, and of course that all happened within 10 minutes after he gave the order. Every aircraft was ordered onto the ground, which was quite a feat in itself. And that's when they discovered that, they got 11 airplanes here still out in the air somewhere. We don't know what's going on. Well, and this one is headed for Washington, D.C. And of course, they launched these 2 F-16s out of Andrews Air Force Base. Neither one of them armed because they didn't time to arm them.
Yeah, that's a great story, actually. The pilot.
That's been corrected,
Yeah, the pilot's name, I forget the guy's name, but I know the other F-16, her name was Penny, or is Penny. She's still alive.
Yeah.
But they went up and their plan was they were going to find the airliner, and they were going to come at it perpendicularly, and she was going to ram the cockpit and he was going to ram the tail. And in case one of them missed or it wasn't a fatal shot, they were going to kamikaze it. They were going to go, they were going to line up. Yeah.
Only chance they had. If they wouldn't divert, they was going to.
Yeah, they were going to line up, get it in their sights, and then they said that they were just going to thrusters forward and just, kamikaze that.
You could imagine that if that would have happened, God, it would have probably been over the city. A lot of people on the ground, houses burned.
But I mean,
But the worst thing is if it had made it through and actually hit the White House.
Yeah, which is why,
it might have hit the Capitol, because the First Lady was in the Capitol. Both houses were in session. They'd have wiped out the whole government that morning.
Would have been a decapitation attack the Soviets could have never dreamed of.
Yeah, a lot of things happened that morning. But anyway, I stayed on duty all day that day because I don't know if you remember, but there's a famous photograph where President Bush is talking to Cheney inside Air Force One, and he's talking on the phone. That day, we had gotten orders as a company to install video teleconferencing equipment that was capable, and he wanted video teleconferencing, this Bush now, this is Bush administration, to be able to do video conferencing from Air Force One to anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Which meant, to the White House, which was our job to install that video teleconferencing. The first time that was tested, it hadn't been tested yet. It had been installed. But the first time Cheney used that video teleconference room was that morning.
Baptism.
It worked. Yay!
It worked. Hey, talk about a baptism by fire, man. That's who was it? The head of the FAA? His first day was September 11th, 2001.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Yeah. That would have been baptism by fire too. Huh?
I mean, hey, every day after that is easier.
Yeah.
Every day for the rest of your career is easier.
Right. Well, there's a lot of other things that happen. One of the stories when you asked the question about security, that was one of the things I wanted to tell you the story. When General McCaffrey was moving into the old executive office building, he was up on the second or third floor, maybe something like that. He wanted the office had been abandoned and it was sitting empty, basically, with no furniture in it. And it came down to me for my guys to install the furniture as well as all the computer equipment and everything, a telephone, the computer, the copy machines, the fax machines, anything that you communicated with out of there. He wanted a top secret phone and a regular unsecured landline. Mm-hmm. So I said, I asked my boss, well, how the heck you do that? I don't know nothing about furniture. He said, well, you go out to this warehouse on the south side of town. Says you pick out the furniture that you need, that he wants, and he gave me a list of stuff, a desk and a credenza and and a couple of file cabinets and a secretary's desk, et cetera, et cetera. Whole truckload of stuff. So you go out there and you pick that out and you label it. And they said, then they got to take that. They got to take a truck, which is a White House truck. And they go out and they pick that furniture up. Then they take it out to the Navy Yard, and they got to run it through security out there. And they got to through it in magnetron to make sure no explosives or anything in it.
Yeah.
And they got to put it back in the truck, lock up the truck. Secret Service agents got to be there. And then they got to drive that truck with Secret agent behind it, so nobody can plant a bomb in there between the Navy Yard, which is like a 5-mile trip from there, over to the 18 acres. Well, then you got to get through the gate there. So you got to notify the guy there. You got this truck coming in at a certain time. They give you like a 5-minute window where he's got to be right there at that gate at that time.
Jesus.
Because all the other traffic, there's always going on around there. So we get this window. Well, I had to hire 4 or 5 guys, and they're all Argentinians. Immigrants. Well, they're probably all illegal. I don't know. A company that we were told what company to use, and these guys have clearances and they could come in. So I met them at the front gate on the north side of the White House. The truck backs up, and we get all the paperwork, and they get up and they inspect the lock and everything, make sure it hadn't been penetrated, and then we bring it in. Well, there's a certain door that you have to use to move furniture in, a certain elevator you have to use in order to move the furniture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, you got to have all of the clearances inside the building and where you're moving, and they got to know you're doing, and like you said, all those layers of security you got to get through, and it's just not. It takes 3 hours of paperwork and coordination just to move a computer in.
Yeah, but it makes sense, right? Because if you wanted to attack the president, you're not going to try to. Me and 10 friends are going to go run up with guns. No, you're going to do something covert. You're going to find out that the president needs a new couch, and you're going to get that couch, and that's the last thing anyone would expect. You're going to go in there. You're going to maybe put some needles in it that are tipped with polonium or something, right? But that's what they do, right? Red cell teams.
Camera on it or something.
Sure, but isn't that what a red cell team is? Well, they'll hire Navy SEALs or Delta and be try to find our weaknesses, because that's how you do it. Because it's not about protecting it; it's about having someone else actively. So a civilian like me can be you should put some polonium dust in there, or maybe some VX gas, or a shape charge under the cushion, if you're talking about the head of the leader of the free world with the power to have the nuclear codes, that's the kind of threat you're going up against, right? Is stuff like that. Yeah. I know with Air Force One, when they buy food, what they do is they send plainclothes agents out to grocery stores in an adjacent city, because it's that's the last place anyone's going to be let's poison this food. It's you don't go to the grocery store down the street from the White House. You drive 30 miles and go to some gas station and you pick up some deli sandwiches. That's the only way you can be sure.
Exactly. Yeah, you're pretty. I think you read too many Tom Clancy books.
or I'm just.
But yeah, all that stuff is pretty real. And I said the security is just super tight, especially with 9/11. Any time there's a threat.
Yeah,
a real threat, the security level goes up even higher. And I can imagine what it's like this week. The inauguration week is the worst.
There's 20,000 National Guard troops there.
Yeah, it's amazing if you got that many people in town. What can happen?
Well, it's weird though, because
would not want to be in charge of any of that.
What's weird about this inauguration, I don't mean to go off on a side tangent, is it's going to be virtual. It's not going to be. They're not doing a real inauguration, but they're still bringing in 20,000 National Guard.
Yeah, and they got 1,000 people that are invited that will sit in the bleachers that are around the White House. There, you saw that all set up, and there's still going to be a parade.
Yeah.
As far as I know, they haven't called the parade off yet, have they?
I think they did.
That's going to. They did call off the parade.
I might be fake news, but I'm pretty sure they canceled it.
I'll be darned. Well, that'll be really something if they do that.
It's going to be interesting.
Reagan is the only one that's ever called off the parade, but it's because it was like 17 below zero that morning.
Just like, screw it, I'm not doing this.
No, well, he didn't want all those people.
Yeah.
I mean, a parade to go off for a band to get bands have got to be down there 7 o'clock in the morning, go through security and all. I mean, it's a horrible nightmare if you're in the parade.
Yeah.
What you've got to do to get in there, and if you're standing out there for 7 hours waiting for, your little 2-minute Hall of Fame to walk down the street, you're crazy.
You're gonna probably die of hypothermia.
Yeah. Well, let me go back to the furniture story.
Sure. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. What's a good side tangent? We get on the elevator, and I get up to the elevator, and as I walk off the elevator, there's 2 Secret Service agents standing there in front of the door. I thought, what that means is the president's in the building or he's coming into the building.
Mm-hmm.
The old executive office, just a 2-minute walk from the Oval Office there. Well, if the president's on the air, you ain't moving furniture up and down the hallway when you're doing it, right? And I'm paying these guys $15 an hour, and I got 4 or 5 of them sitting there, and I'm going, gee, now I got to wait here an hour. And I said, hey, what's the chances of? And all I had to do was come off the elevator, make a left turn, go about 4 doors down, and put the desk in the dang door. In the door. It would take me 30 seconds to do this. Well, the Secret says, no, can't move. As soon as the president goes by and we're clear area, then you can do it. So I'm waiting, we're waiting. 15, 20 minutes go by. The Secret Service agent says, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, then he waves me over and he says, okay, you can go. But he says, go around the other way. And I thought, go around the other way. That's about 300 yards to go all the way around the other way. And I've got to go up like 16 stairs up and 16 stairs down. There's no elevator and no ramp or anything down there. And these heavy desks. And I mean, these guys are grunting to get this stuff around. And mind you, this is like in July. It's the hottest day of the year. These guys are stinking sweat, carrying this, juggling this stuff all around. So I told the guys, okay, and they don't know that they're only 3 doors down where they're really going.
Yeah.
But so we walk, and we get these trolleys and get all the way down. We go clear down the other end and back across the other side of the building, all the way down the other end of the building and back up the stairs, back down the stairs, put them back all on the trolleys, and we get all the way down to the door where we're going in, and I see the elevator doors opening. So these guys don't speak English, but I'm trying to tell them that the president of the United States is going to come through that door any second now, They finally understood what I was saying, So they're all standing there, and I said, boy, they get to see the president of the United States. And sure enough, door opens up, President Bush comes out, he makes a right turn, he heads to the conference room, and as he comes out, he looks to the left and sees my guy standing there, and I'm standing behind him with the furniture, and I got my cell phone on, and I'm talking to my boss, because I'm saying, he's wanting to know why I'm taking so long to get this job done. Yeah. So here comes President, right? He makes a right turn, takes about 2 steps, talks to a Secret Service, says, just a minute. He says, I want to go say hi to these guys. He comes over and walks right up. I'm from here to, 2 feet in front of me. Here's the President of the United States, George Bush, and he's shaking hands with these 4 guys, sweat running down their head, and their eyes are about this big. Yeah. They cannot believe President Bush would come over and say, and he comes over and says, I just, want to thank you guys for helping out with whatever you're doing here. He says, it looks like you're working pretty hard, but I just want to know what I appreciate you doing and helping our guys in support here, He turned around and walked off. And I'm sitting there on the cell phone talking. I said, boss, you ain't going to believe what I just saw. I wish I had a camera and got it. It was just the way George Bush was. He just be somebody that was helping. He'd just go over and say, hey, thanks for what you're doing. Where other presidents would look down their nose and would, how indignant that they would talk to somebody that's moving furniture.
Sure.
It'd be way below their level.
Sure.
But he just instantly made the decision to do it. I went over, and of course, these guys, they probably never washed their hands for a month.
Yeah. Yeah, I had on a guy, Sean Tiger, who was in the Marines and was in the presidential support team, So they did security like a beefed up security. They were the Marines that would be there. They were cleared to be in the Oval Office. Like there's pictures of him with Bush, and as well as Camp David. And he talked about one time they were at Camp David, and there was like some downtime, so they started playing like video games, just the security. And they said at one point they're playing, and his buddy is like sitting. There's like a TV, and they're kind of at like like opposite kind of spots. And he's looking, and there's a door to his left, but he doesn't see it. But he just sees his friend stop playing and look up, and he's like, "Why did you stop?" And there's a hand on his shoulder, and it's just George Bush, and he's like, "What are you guys playing?" And he's like, "I was at a loss for words." He's like, "I'm playing video games," and there's Bush going like, "What game is it?" And he's just like, he just walked away laughing. But Mr. Beckenhauer, I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. So if you got to go, you can go. If you want or not, hold down the line and just monologue.
Okay. No, I'll hang on. Yeah, okay. I better go too, I think so.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll be right back, everybody. And we are back. Yeah. And again, sorry I keep interrupting you. I get so excited. I'm bad about it. I get very excited, and I'm like, I got questions. But yeah, that's insane. Can you talked about the situation? Can you talk about like bunkers or anything, or like safe rooms underground, or is that off limits? Is that?
Well, I don't think most of that stuff is available on National Geographic magazine. You could probably go in and see where all that stuff is, what the layout of it, everything is. I think that the locations are probably, the locations are pretty much, well, it's like where the press conference room is, the Oval Office in southwest corner.
Yeah.
Southeast corner, and you walk over down the hallway there to where the chief staff's office, all the vice president's office, that going to the west, and then you make a left turn. You go down a bunch of stairs, and you go into the bunker complex, is where that's all underneath. I'm not sure how deep it is or how wet it is, but I think it's all concrete. I've seen pictures anyway when they were building it. So I don't, it wasn't inhabited. The neat thing is there's tunnels between everything. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember what movie it was, but it's one of them where I think it was the guy used to speak in his shoe. It was a comedy, but it was a
Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, he'd take his shoe off and he'd talk into his shoe. It was a radio. Kind of funny. But he would walk in the movie. He walks out, and where the front gate is, there's those big 4x4 posts are there where the gate opened up. That a door opened up on that, and he'd walk out. That doesn't exist as far as I know.
That's funny, yeah.
What is kind of cool You were just there. Did you look at? You go around the north side of the White House, and there's a fountain there, and all that water comes up right in front of the north door, where the president will pull up and gets out. And is there?
I saw bits of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big fountain. It's it's a nice, beautiful thing. There's a garden around and flowers. It's all pretty and everything. Underneath that is a bowling alley and a workout room and a basketball court.
That's awesome.
It's a huge room. Yeah, you'd never know it was there. But when the president wants to go exercise or work out, and it's he doesn't want to disturb traffic and all this.
Yeah.
He can just go over there. I don't know. Obama went over there and shot baskets all the time. But he wanted to go shoot baskets with him. There was always a certain time of day. So you go down there in your gym clothes. You could work out with him, go bowling or whatever you want. There's a movie theater there. The movie theater is on the east wing, going over to where the First Lady's offices are. There's a movie theater. We built that screen and put in the projectors and all that stuff over there. For that was it's a gorgeous room and a big luxury sheet. You sit there and watch it. The screen's probably 10 feet high and 12 feet wide, something like that. But all first edition movies will come out of there. If he wants to see a movie, he can just go over and watch a movie and all that. So it's quite the facility. And the thing about it, it's so historical.
Yeah.
Everything you do is because it's protected by the National Historical Society. We want to put in a cable to, there's fiber optics just came out, and we want to put in fiber cable and pull all the old stuff out. Oh man, it's like you got to go through City Hall and the bureaucracy just to run a cable to the new TV, that he wants to put in, or our video teleconferences facility. All that was, it was like magic. And, like I said, the different layers of staff that worked there, our layer was the lowest layer. Basically, you just was a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
And if they knew you by your first name, you were making a mistake. Yeah. You didn't want to be known by your first name when you walked around there. They knew who you were because of what you did. Yeah.
What do you mean when you just said it was like magic? What do you mean? Like it was magical because it was historical, or do you mean like technologically?
Yeah. You can't believe you're working
in the White House,
a place that has that much history.
Okay.
It's not been around that.
Yeah.
And then as you. It's like the basement level of the old executive office building were all call it craft shops. Plumber works in there, your electrician works in there, all of the wood shop. Something breaks down in the White House, they can't just call a plumber downtown to come out and fix the toilet. You got to have a staff member there that does that.
Okay.
Your cooks, your cooks are all military.
Yeah.
The chief chef is not. He's a regular, but all of basically the cooks that do the daily stuff and all that when I was there, he was a Navy chef.
Yeah.
Great story. I'm over there. One of my goals was to eat at the White House, right?
Yeah.
Have a dinner at the White House some night or in the evening for some event. I never got to accomplish that, but I did get to sneak a lot of food out of the kitchen. For the little conferences and little meetings and stuff where there were snacks in the back, I got to steal a lot of those. When we'd come in and take the podium out and take our speakers and wiring and mics out or whatever for the conference, we'd sneak all my texts. We'd sneak all the food out was left. Great food, I'm telling you. White House food is fabulous.
What is I was going to say, you were saying about plumbers. That got me thinking. What about like a fire department? Is that local? Do they have their own team?
No, I think they would have to call in fire department. There's fire extinguishers on and everything in there. But like if somebody launched a missile into that place, I would think they would have to have a local fire.
Well, I was just thinking again, just from an attack standpoint, what better way than to get a bunch of Spetsnaz disguised as firefighters, start a fire, call in Spetsnaz, and now the White House should hire me. I should do their security.
You should do that. You could put your application in there. You might get the job.
Maybe. Who knows?
You got to think evil things,
Yeah, and apparently I do.
Doing that,
Yeah, but I was just thinking, if you have to call in a local fire department, you would infiltrate the fire department and then give them a reason to call you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I never even gave that a thought when I was there, I guess.
I'm going to put in my resume.
Anyway, I was going to tell you this story. There's, the kitchen where you do the cooking and everything is below. It's in the White House itself, but it's in the basement level. It's down in the corner down there. And basically, they just run the food up on a dumbwaiter and bring it into the East Wing or wherever it is they're doing the dinner or banquets and stuff in there. So the kitchen, the cooking, and all that's done downstairs. And the whole process of bringing in food, all that, you've kind of briefed a little bit of that yourself. It's everything's got to be tested, sampled. You think how much food goes through that place every day, and they've never had a poisoning. I don't know if anybody's attempted it, but it's top of the list. Everything in that place. You bring in a pencil, it better pass the scan test, because everything goes in and out of the place is scanned and checked. But they they were having a banquet, and we were setting up equipment for it. And I forget now what the occasion was. It's beside the point. But anyway, I got a chance to follow the cook down. He was setting up where we were at, and I said, "Well, I'd love to see the kitchen sometime." He said, "Oh, come with me." So I followed him down. We go down, and I'm showing me around. And so I asked him, "Well, how many cooks are there?" And he says, "Well, there's." Excuse me, I'm catching coffee today. He was telling me that every cook that's there has a specialty dish that they deal with. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, what's yours?" And he said, "Well, I'm the chainsaw man." I said, shook my head. I said, "What do you mean a chainsaw man?" He says, "Well, come with me." And he goes back here, and there's two closets that are probably about 4 feet by 6 feet, but they're freezers. And there's big rubber blivet in there, and it's full of ice. So he's got two chainsaws there, and he does carvings that they.
Oh.
And he has two of them that he did. He made this big eagle. This eagle was about 7 feet tall and would sit in the middle of a punch table, and that was his job. One of the things he specialized in was making those ice sculptures. So I asked him, I said, "Well, how often do you do this?" He said, "Well, I do it quite a bit." He says, "I bootleg time and do things for hotels and different places around town." He says, "My real job is I'm a E6 in the Navy, but," he says, I do this other stuff for hotels, and he says, "Well, all my equipment is just two chainsaws and a blowtorch." He would melt stuff down and smooth things out with chainsaw. So that was his job. And I thought, well, that's interesting little thing. Another one I ran into one time, we had a plumbing problem. Mm-hmm. We were doing it outside of my jurisdiction with the wiring, but water was setting in where we needed to run through this tunnel cable and stuff. I don't think he knew that it was a plumbing problem. So I said, "Well, what the heck do we do?" He said, "Well, go down and get the plumber." And he said, "Come on, fix this and drain and all that." So I go down to the plumbing office, which is downstairs in the basement down there on the old executive office building. I walk in and introduce myself and explain the problem. And so I'm sitting there waiting for him to come with me. And I said, "What's your job here?" And he said, "Well, how long you been here?" I guess that my question was, "How long you been here?" He said, "Oh, I've been here since President Johnson was president." These guys, when you start working there, you don't quit. I mean, you got the best job in town, and probably pretty high paying, and very prestigious.
Yeah.
It's good. You get to work on stuff that nobody in the world gets to work on.
Yeah. And you can probably leave there with that on your resume and go anywhere. What did you do? "Oh, I made ice sculptures for the White House."
Yeah.
Okay. Holiday Inn's going to hire you, right?
That's the guy you want to call and talk on your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I'm going to be raising eyebrows. They're going to be like, "Why is this guy interviewing so many people around White House security?" They're going to tune in. They'll be like, "He's talking about putting polonium."
You probably better check that microphone there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I'm going to go do a podcast there. I'm like, yeah, they would look at this, make sure there's no C4 in there. Yep. I think they should hire me. Why not? Clearly, my mind thinks that way, for better or worse.
There you go. But anyway, the plumber.
Yeah.
I said, what interesting stories have you got? I'm sure you've been a fly on the wall here long enough. He said, well, probably the most interesting one that he liked to talk about anyway was when President Johnson course, he came into the White House under bad circumstances with Kennedy being killed. But he said about the first morning he was there, that he had moved in, he called the plumber up there. He says, I went up and he said, he walked him into the shower and he says, this is what I want. I want 7 points of showers here coming from every direction. He didn't want just one shower head. He wanted 7 shower heads all around. He says, I'm a big guy, so I got to clean off. He says, I'm in a hurry too, so I got to get,
Fair.
And he said, and he says, another thing, he said, I want 110 pounds of pressure on there. And he says, I want to turn it on and it's hot instantly. I don't want to sit around here waiting for, I'm the president, I'm going to get what I want, right? So he said that was a real trick, I guess, to rewire or replumb all that and put in all that. And he said, but the hardest part was to get the temperature at exactly what he wants when he turns the water on. So you had to have one of those heater tanks right next to the shower. But you learn real quick when you're working there that if somebody says, well, the president wants it, most of the time they don't have any idea. But supposedly you're supposed to jump 3 feet high in the air and just immediately do whatever they want, no matter what the costs are.
Yeah. That's a weird fine line, right? Because part of it's like, I want these shower heads, I want these ice sculptures, and I think of like George Washington. They would probably look at that and be like, that's a king, kill him. But then part of me is like, as soon as you said it, I was like, oh wait, I get it. Like, I don't have time to shower, I need to step in, be clean, and step out. If you're the leader of the free world, I mean, I guess I get that argument too. But it does seem a little like royalty.
Yeah.
And I'm not down with that.
And it was, as I said, I worked there through 3 administrations. The last 4 years of President Clinton, then it was 8 years with President Bush. And then I didn't work a full year under Obama, and I got promoted and moved out of the building, which was a huge relief to just have that over with.
Yeah.
It was a great job. I mean, you got to see and do things and experience things, and you got to just, you're a fly on the wall in the back of the room and got to witness history.
Yeah.
And you had access to the banquets. You had access to the, see the Christmas decorations. And I mean, it was just a tremendous opportunity and honor to work, to be part of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any power trip where I'd like to be the chief of staff or something like that any day. I mean, I was plenty happy just to be a schmuck and just watch what's going on around there. But you learned real fast that the difference between the military and politicians is just night and day.
Really? How so?
In the military, there's a mutual respect. There's some of general officers that are, and I don't think you get to be general if you don't have a super ego of some sort.
Sure.
There's very, very humble 4-star generals. There are a few, but for the most part, I mean, you yes sir, no sir, you in and out. You didn't associate with them personally at the personal level because it was everything just do what you told and you're following orders and that. Where you go into the political world, though, power is everything. I mean, the size of the computer that they had. If he was a chief of staff, he had to have the fastest, the bestest, the biggest, the strongest, the whatever computer. Whether he knew how to use it or not didn't matter, and where you sit and the view you have out the window and the size of the window all depends on how much power you have. It was just ridiculous what some of these people would do. And then, like I said, the differences in the different presidents as far as what their expectations were of the people that worked for them was pretty novel too. I mean, when I started working there, you can blank this out probably, but Hillary was in charge. I mean, she was the one that run the place.
Do you want me to remove this? Do you want me to edit this out? Okay, because I think it's funny. I think it's funny.
It's pretty common knowledge, but I don't want her to come back and I'm committing suicide.
Hey, for everyone listening,
depends on who's listening to this.
Neither John nor myself are suicidal. All right, for the record.
Yeah, she ran the place. I mean, it was, normally the first lady has 4 to 6 people that work for her, and she works over in the East Wing. And that's normal protocol. I mean, President Bush's Laura, I think she had like 12 people work for her. I know Melania Trump, she only got 6 people that work for her. They cut way back on staff. And, there's so much excess and so much waste in budgets, you can't believe it. I mean, it's just ludicrous, a waste of money that you see when they work compared to the military, where you had to squeeze every dang dime usually.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some waste there, but for the most part, you didn't change computers every 3 weeks because you wanted a bigger screen, a bit of this, or new telephone and all that. I mean, these people, just because they worked at the White House, they thought they were gods.
Yeah.
So it was more of a royalty thing, and especially with that, the Clinton administration, there was, for instance, let me give you, we worked at night a lot because we're running cables and they don't want people doing all this kind of stuff that we did within the company, working in the daytime when all the access to offices and stuff was going on. So we'd have to work at nights and we'd run cable or put in equipment and change equipment out and stuff. But you'd walk in. We were, there was I forget what we were doing. I think it had to do with the video teleconferencing stuff. And we're working in and back and forth in the White House, at the White House itself. And I looked in on the Oval Office one night, just looked in the door to see if anybody was around. And here's their staff officer, what they call the White House interns. Mm-hmm. They run all over the place. They're everywhere. Most of them are. Well, some of them are legitimate, but most of the White House interns under Clinton were donors, big donors' children, kids. A lot of them were 19 to 25-year-old college kid age. Real smart asses.
Yeah.
They worked at the White House, so they had all this power. They just treated
quid pro quo. Yeah.
They're sitting in there with their feet kicked up, eating pizza in T-shirts. That was the respect they had for the office they were in.
That's just
versus when the Bushes came in. I mean, automatically everybody had a suit and tie on. I mean, you noticed that difference right away. There was no doubt that there was a new sheriff in town just by the way they walked. Everybody. I mean, Clinton, when he would hold meetings, you never knew when he was going to start. We'd have to have stuff set up for a 1:00 press conference. He might show up at 4:00 or 5:00, and especially on days when it was, they wanted to introduce something, a story. It was always late on a Friday afternoon, and the press people were just having to sit around and wait for hours sometimes. Clinton was never on time for anything. I mean, even for his presidential parade, he was 2 hours late. For the first inauguration, his parade started 2 hours late because he just is oblivious to time. He's the president. He can do what he wants.
Sounds like a power move, right?
Oh, it was. He was just a real power, especially her. She was disgusting woman.
Yeah. Well, do you know who Andy Stumpf is? And he was on SEAL Team 6. He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast a couple times. Well, a lot of the inner circles of Secret Service, once you get to that level, a lot of them are former SEAL Team 6, Delta Force. I mean, they're ready to fight at a moment's notice, right? They dress up in suits, but these guys are commandos. He said that, this is Andy Stumpf, this isn't me. This is he was on SEAL Team 6 or DevGru, and he was talking on Joe Rogan a couple of years ago, and he was like yeah, one of my buddies who was on SEAL Team 6 was working on her security detail at the White House, and she was walking down the hall, and he opened the door for her as she's going to the limo, and he says, "Good morning, Mrs. Clinton," and she just screams, "Shut the fuck up." And he was like, of course, you can't do anything. You just nod and close the door. But he was like, another one of his friends got on an elevator with her, and he goes, he's like, morning, ma'am. And she looks at him and says, I don't talk to the hired guns.
Yeah. She just was indignant with anybody. Basically, the order was you don't make eye contact with her.
Royalty.
If you're in the hallway, get out of the way. And if you can get invisible to her, because she just was. Well, if you weren't her level, it was basically you're schmucks.
Yeah.
Don't look at me. Don't talk to me unless I talk to you. And and she had the most foul mouth of any woman I just couldn't believe how foul mouthed she was. And then you saw the chemistry between the two of them. If they were in the room, and both of them were in the same room with a camera, smiles, la-di-da, oh, we love each other. As soon as that camera left, boom, separate ways. That's it. Yeah, you didn't see. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
a lot of that was going on. I didn't get, because I'm flammable, and I avoided as much as I could contact with any of that kind of thing. But I was just very observant as to how different qualities the different presidencies were and the people that worked for them.
Yeah,
that was a real education for me. Yeah.
Comment as I had on Juanita Broderick, who was raped by Bill Clinton. She came on this podcast, and she is the sweetest woman in the world. I love you, Juanita. She came on here, and in her book called You Better Put Some Ice on That, How I Survived Being Raped by Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton's a psychopath. After he raped her, he looked at her and said, you should put some ice on that, because her lip was bleeding because he was biting her lip while he was raping her. So if she started to make noise, he would bite harder. That just lets you know who that guy is. But she said the most scared she's ever been in her life wasn't when she was being raped, but rather when Hillary came up to her and shook her hand and said, it's so nice to meet you. Bill said, she said, I knew what it was. And she was saying, like, don't you ever say a word. He's running for president. He said, Juanita said that's the most scared she's ever been in her life, is when Hillary shook her hand and looked her in the eye and said, Bill said so much about you. She was like, I felt like I was looking into the eyes of Satan. Like, yeah, that's not my words. I'm just repeating what she said. Yeah. But I mean, you're right. I mean,
it is.
It is what it is.
The difference is, I said when Bush came in the first morning, he says business hours start at 7, and he said everybody's supposed to be here at 7. Well, Clinton would come in between 10 and noon sometimes, but Clinton would work till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Sure. He was a workaholic.
Yeah,
but he wasn't a morning person at all. Where Bush was businessman, of course. He was politician, but he ran businesses, and it was very businesslike with him. I mean, suits and ties, proper manners, no swear words. Yeah. He had staff people, interns, everybody, just down the line, just a bunch of quality folks.
Yeah.
Clinton area. I don't know if you remember the porno episode that got into, somebody reported to the newspaper that they were watching porno at the White House.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, that was all over Washington Post anyway. I don't know how international it got, but that was another thing that was going on. Of course, my boss comes to me and he says, can you tell me how many people are you able to monitor who's watching, who's looking at what websites, and how long they look at them? I said, well, I don't know. I'll find out for you. So talked to our technicians, and they said, well, it's not legal, but we can do it if you tell us to. You're not supposed to wire that. And he said, well, it's the president. The president wants to know. So I guess that makes it legal, right? So they did the survey, and boy, they found out there was interns looking at porno 6-8 hours a day. Multiple people were looking at porno sites. This is inside the 18 acres.
It sounds more than anything. It sounds like a power trip.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well, they didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah, I mean, what better way to sort of exert your power? Yeah, I do nothing. I watch porn at the White House. That's how high up I am.
The thing is, when we reported it, of course, I thought, well, a lot of people were going to get fired and thrown out of the building, but nope. They got the little letter comes out, a little memo. It says, we've been observing that this has been going on, and we need it to cease. Nobody hung for it.
Rules.
I guarantee you, if Bush that would happen to his administration, there would have been no interns left. Doing such a thing.
I mean, that's insane. I mean,
yeah.
There's a really good book I think you would enjoy, and it's called Air Force One. I don't know if it's on Audible. I remember reading the physical book a couple of years ago, but it's just it's from FDR through, I want to say, Bush. I think it was written then. It was before Obama, but it's just firsthand accounts of the presidents on Air Force One. And how they said that's where you saw the real personality, because even the White House, although it's their home, it's still very much a global stage. Everything's choreographed. It's all optics. So on the White House, you can put the press in the back. You can basically lock them in there. And then they have this little bubble, 35,000 feet. No one's around. They can do and kind of say whatever they want. They can actually be themselves. And they said that's when you'd see their personalities come out. And it's interesting. They all do have their own like you said. I mean, Clinton is he was, kind of very relaxed, informal, playing cards a lot. But the author does a good job. And I don't think you or I can do it, but he does a very good job at being unbiased. And he goes, they all had their own methods to their madness. They're like, Clinton would stay up till 4 a.m, but he got the job done. He just did it it's kind of like the George Patton quote. Don't tell people how to do something. Tell them what you want done and let them surprise you with their ingenuity. So whereas Reagan might have been an early riser, or Bush was an early riser, or whatever, you'd have, or LBJ was an asshole or something. They said at the end of the day, they still got the job done. So it was kind of, if you get to that level, regardless of how nice you are, if you're a mean or a good person, the reality is you have to be intelligent. You don't get to the Oval Office not being intelligent. Yeah.
And I think of the three that I work for, Clinton, head and shoulders above anybody when it came to intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
You'd sit in a press conference. I mean, he'd take questions.
Yeah.
And you could not stump him. I mean, who's the president of Zimbabwe?
Yeah.
He knew.
Yeah.
He could rattle off statistics and figures all out of his head.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got to respect the intelligence.
Super smart. I mean, you just tend to have a lick of common sense. I mean, how bring in a new intern and get involved in an affair at the White House, the Oval Office.
That's what this author said a lot, was you don't have to like him. He's like, you can dislike a president, but he was like, you got to understand, these guys are the most wildly intelligent people. He was like, he was like Nixon. He talks about it was, I forget who it was. There was a journalist that hated Nixon. He thought he was in his words, thought he was like the devil incarnate. And then he said, after he was impeached or left the White House or whatever, he was with him at some dinner party in Manhattan. And it's just one-on-one. And it's this super liberal guy that just hates Nixon. And he goes, I'll be damned. He goes, if that wasn't the most profound intellectual conversation I've ever had in my life. And he was like, I want to hate this guy. But it's kind of you don't have to like the quarterback of a team. But guess what? If they're the quarterback who just won the Super Bowl, you got to respect the game, right? And that's how I try to look at it. As much as I lean right, and as much as I like to shit on more liberal leaning people, the reality is you got to respect competence and intelligence. You don't have to like them, you don't have to agree with them, but I mean,
Yeah, and as a military guy, come across, and then you throw me into that environment.
Sure.
I mean, it was a real education to start with, but what an experience, to be able to do that. And I was just in awe most of the time, no matter who was in there, at how things operate at that level. It's just incredible. And I was just like, no way I could do this. There's just no way I could do what they do.
Yeah, operates like a
I'd come across as a real buffoon compared to what they do.
Yeah. That's
as sometimes they do.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Some of them, and then you got to remember they all have their own flaws. I mean, Kennedy. I mean, how sharp was Kennedy? But Kennedy was having girls climb out the back window before Jackie got home. I mean, like that's insane. And then not only that, like the press would agree to be quiet. Like Johnson used to answer questions on the toilet. But it was like a gentleman's agreement that they weren't going to make the president look like an idiot, so they never would say in the papers, while he was pooping with his pants down, he answered questions. But it was just, it's this. Truman used to. Truman would have the. And again, I'm sorry, I know I keep interrupting you. There's like a 1 second delay between you and I. But Truman used to fly over the states, or when he was flying over the states of senators that he didn't like. He would have them dump the septic tank.
Great story.
Truman was insane. They said he would come out of the bathroom. He said pants around his ankles. He'd come out like, he'd just, how Truman looked insane sometimes. Yeah, he'd come out clapping. He'd be like, take that. And they'd be like, I think like one of the running jokes was like, it wasn't enough that he dropped 2 bombs on Japan, so he's still dropping bombs at home. But like, it's... Yeah, LBJ used to take his penis out on Air Force One. Swear to God, he would take it out, and apparently he was just well hung. And he would take it out. It's take it for what you will.
You don't do that stuff anymore.
No. JFK used to go on there and have a couple drinks, take the medicine for his back, and pass out, and then his dog would run up and down the aisles, and no one ever wanted to tell the dog to shut up because it was the president's dog. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I've got a whole lot more stories I could tell you, but I think the key thing that I was involved in was after 9/11, was establishing the Homeland Security offices and setting all that up. Boy, what a tremendous experience that was. I was 18 hours a day for about 9 months straight. I was sleeping on the job a lot of times just to get that up. Basically, they came to our company and said, well, here's mega millions of dollars. We need this turnkey operation in 6 months. Can you make it happen? And my boss, he never turned down anything. Yeah, we can make that happen. Go ahead.
Like I told you beforehand, I need to use the restroom. So I'm going to do that, and I'll come back, and then we'll jump into this story. Sorry.
All right, very good. No problem.
And we are back. Thank you for your patience. So
you remind me, you raise your hand, go to the bathroom. When I grew up, like I said, in the farm country in Nebraska here, we had the old one-room schoolhouses back then.
Yeah.
You raised your hand. Number one was to go number one, and number two is to go by poop. You had to go number one or number two.
And if you're shaking, it means it's really.
You had to shake your hand in order to, because the outhouse was out behind the school.
Yeah, that's the. I drink so much water. That's the I mean, I also think I have a weak bladder, but that's the problem is like like when the podcast is going, like I have to go because otherwise like the conversation won't be good because I won't be paying attention. I'll just be like, I have to go to the bathroom. But so Department of Homeland Security, so this is after 9/11, they said that they need this turnkey thing and we need it on this day.
Basically, well, the first task was set up 40 offices, so a turnkey operation. And they didn't know where to put it to start with. They set up about 6 offices in the old executive office to start with. It was the Office of Homeland Security. Mm-hmm. And what's his name? Tom Ridge came down, Governor Ridge from Pennsylvania, mm-hmm. and he was made the director. I don't think it was director level yet, but anyway, he was put in charge of it, and then the Homeland Security Department was going to move out. They took me and a couple other guys in a van, no windows, sat in the back, and we drive out. And I didn't have any idea where we were, but we drove about 45 minutes, and I know we went through a secure gate. And there were guards at the gate because we saw that, and we drive down this little wood road somewhere in the woods, and come up on this little building, and we get in the building and we go down in an elevator, and we get down in 30, 40 feet. I mean, it was 20, 30 seconds before we got to the bottom of the thing, and the doors open up, and here's this great big room, and in it are reel-to-reel tape recorders and old transistor radios. I mean, this used to be a nuclear attack off-site where they moved the Pentagon Communications Center, would move out there in a nuclear attack, and they'd run the skiff out there from this room. And they asked us, would this work for Homeland Security offices? Well, we gave that thumbs down. It's too far away. No support. We wouldn't be able to do it. And so they took us to a couple other sites like that. Had no idea those places even existed. They're all within 30 minutes of downtown Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And they're still out there, but they're, old, worn out facilities. And they end up finally going to the Navy Yard, which was on Nebraska Avenue out by University of, or called American University. The National Cathedral is. It's out in that general area out there is where it was then. I think they've now since moved it over onto the Maryland side. It's pretty close to not too far from Andrews Air Force Base, mm-hmm. up the road from where you're at there. But anyway, they wanted, one, to build the skiff right away. And then 2, they wanted offices for like 40 people, which would eventually expand to like 400 people, I think it was going to be total. So, I mean, they dumped this on, and money was not an issue. Mm-hmm. Right after 9/11, national security was everything was tack nuke. You got to get everything done now. It has to be done yesterday, and there's double redundancy and everything to it. So that was that was a pretty intense time, and to put all that stuff together and to make it work first time was quite a feat. And they had a team of I guess they were skiff builders. We subcontracted in and brought in these facilities. But what we found out was this place is where when the Pearl Harbor hit, they sent the telegram to Washington, D.C. through the Navy office. That was historically was where that message sat in that one of those offices in an in-bath.
Yeah, it was pigeonholed.
Yeah, so that was another little bit of history we got to experience in doing that. But building that out and putting it up there was pretty interesting because one of the conference rooms they had, the president came out there one day, and the vice president, I guess, to start with. He came in and he looked at the conference room. He said, "What I want is a table where I can have my whole staff sit here, and I can push a button here from the front of the office, in front of my table," he said, and a screen will pop up, and I can push another button, and I can talk to the governor of whatever state, Can you make that happen? "Oh, sure, we can make that happen." And he looks at me and says, "How do we make that happen?" I don't know. Let me get the technicians in here. We'll find out, But anyway, he wanted to be able to, in this room, and this is when flat screen monitors were just coming out, the TVs that were like 40 inches and they were $20,000 a piece. And he wanted them all the way around this room, one for every governor. So he could have a press conference and talk to 50 governors at one time.
So the original Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And this was, way ahead of what technology was at the time. When they're going to do a video teleconference with 50 people at the same time to wire that control board up so that would happen. That was a real feat. These guys, you'd just come out of the woodwork and would work on this stuff and make it happen. Well, he goes off somewhere to a meeting in Chicago or something, and he sits in a meeting with the mayor of Chicago or something. Anyway, he sees these new monitors in this conference room up there, and they're like 52 inches instead of the 40 inches. "Oh, I want those." So we get this directive come down. And of course, this skiff is built to fit these screens 40 inches. Now we want 52-inch screens. We haven't even turned a lot of these on yet, right?
Perfect government waste.
Oh, no kidding. Take them all down, rebuild the room so he could fit 50 of them in. It was something else. And then, of course, the table, got bigger and bigger because they wanted bigger laptops and screens in front of them and that control board that ran that whole thing was just amazing. Whoever wired that thing had got that thing to work, and I don't know if they ever used it. Yeah. That was sad.
I'm gonna text you an audiobook that you should really listen to. I had on the author, Garrett Graff. I'll text it to you. It's called Raven Rock. Because Raven Rock is one of those, right? You got NORAD, Mount Weather, Raven Rock, the Greenbrier. You've got some, but like you're talking about, they call it the relocation arc because it's not one bunker. There's bunkers all within 30 to 45 minutes from downtown DC. But this book, it was like a national bestseller. This guy goes in and he starts with FDR and goes through, I believe, the Obama administration, maybe the first part of the Trump administration. But he goes through it, and it's all about what you're talking about: skiffs and communications and redundants and secondaries, tertiaries, quaternaries, like backups, like nuclear blast blows out, like, it vaporizes the antenna tower. They have these, automated bulldozers that come and push off all the rubble. A silo opens up, and a new tower comes out and springs up. Just backups on backups on backups, and these bunkers, and they're all on these big rubber springs, and you would love it. As someone that did communications, you would love it. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I've listened to that book so many times. Easily top 5 favorite books all time.
What's the name of the book?
Raven Rock.
Raven Rock.
Yeah.
Okay.
RAVENROCK. It's the U.S. government's plan to save itself while the rest of us die, by Garrett Graff. I'll send it to you. It's I talked about the book nonstop for a year, and then I finally got the author to come on. But he knows his stuff, man. He's like a Georgetown, I think, political history professor. He's brilliant. But this book is it's insane. On the day of Pearl Harbor, they didn't have an armored limo or van or whatever for FDR. So the head of the Secret Service went to the Federal Impound, and they took Al Capone's repossessed armored car, and they put some flags on it, and they put some flags on it, hoped no one would notice it, and they put FDR in it. And because this thing was meant to take, Al Capone, the rival gangs with Tommy guns, Valentine's Day massacre. Yeah, they slapped some American flags on it. I think they put a siren, and they're like, "There you go, Mr. President." And FDR was just like, "Whatever," But that's all in that book, and it's insane. I think you would legitimately love it. Yeah.
I'll take a look at that. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. So can you go further into the Department of Homeland Security stuff you did, or is that you set it up and then?
Well, yeah, I set it up, and then that's when I got promoted, and then, I got sent up and became the training officer, and I mean, it was great for me because it got me. My commute was reduced from 45 minutes to like 10 minutes from the house.
Yeah,
it was great, and I had all I had to do was look after the technicians, get the training set up for the company, and then set up the emergency evacuation plans for the company. And basically, it was my retirement job. Yeah. I was on my way out the door for that. So,
do you miss it?
Well, the excitement of it, not the pressure. It's really taxing on you. Like I said, 30 years in the military. And then to take on that job was even more higher stress than that.
Yeah.
And especially after 9/11, there was not like I said, there's no room for error. You could not make a mistake. You had all the pressure of politicians around you. Mm-hmm. Just one mistake and you're gone. Basically lose a really good job. I worked for really good people for the most part.
Sure.
I didn't have to deal with the politicians. That was their job. They dealt with that, and there was a buffer for that. My job was just basically to make sure that press conferences went off good. The radio message was recorded every week and broadcast out. Make sure the computers were working. Make sure the radios were working. Another interesting story too. When President Clinton was the president, when you called the telephone by telephone to the office and call the White House by telephone to talk to somebody, you went to an answering service. If you get this is the White House. If you want this in person, you dial 1, you dial 2, dial 3, whatever. Well, Bush came into office and somebody tried to call, and they go through this process, and somebody complained, "What the heck? I got to talk to the president. I got to go through 1 for English and 2 for Spanish." It's like, what the heck? I want that fixed. Yeah. So whenever anybody calls the White House, I want them talking to a person.
Yeah.
So look at me and said, "Well, you make that happen." So our company was in charge of the telephone system. So we had to hire a whole bunch of secretaries or telephone operators. And of course they worked in a remote building down by the State Department, and everything was wired back and forth, but 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We had at least 4 people on job, and during the normal duty hours, we had up to 12, 14 operators working in there all the time, having to do all that. Of course, it wasn't a real high-paying job.
Yeah.
And to try to get people, and we had a high turnover all the time, trying to teach them proper manners, know the staff members, of course, the protocols, the manner, the politeness, all that stuff had to come into effect in that. I mean, we had some of the scum of the earth applying for the jobs. I mean, it's like, and then they had to have top secret clearances. A telephone operator with a top secret clearance was almost impossible to find.
Yeah.
So that was a real hiring nightmare to keep that office running. And I'm not sure what they're doing now with any of that, but that was just one of those things that when you manage an office like that in a place like that, there's just the things you have to do that you never find anywhere else.
Yeah.
Maybe at the Pentagon, but not that I was ever connected to. So
yeah, that's got to be something it's like enjoyable. Probably happy that you did it. Like that was a cool experience. But I'm finished. I'm finished.
I'm glad I'm out of it. I don't miss it one bit.
I think that's what it was. Maybe it was Obama. Maybe it was. I don't remember who. Who knows? Jimmy Carter. I don't remember. Some president. But I remember they said like the day I left the White House. Like the moment the next guy was sworn in, he was like, there was a weight that lifted off my shoulders like I can never explain to you. He's just like, I'm out. Like coach took me out and they put in someone else and I get to sit down on the bench and just breathe.
Well, I said there was two times I experienced that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
One was when I finished Vietnam, got on the airplane to come home, and we took off and the gear comes up. and you just, that's over. I am going home.
Yeah.
You know? And the same thing happened, basically the same feeling when I walked out of there the last time, and you take your badge off and you lay that baby down and you say, I'm not coming back in here unless I'm with somebody that's got one.
Yeah. I'm finished. Yeah.
Like, it is over.
Yeah.
You know?
Did your
Done.
part. You served.
Walk away and you think, okay, I might miss this for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. You'll remember the good parts and you'll miss those.
Yeah.
You won't, you know.
And you do it. And I got to say that I worked in the same copy room that had the shredder in it that Oliver North shredded his documents.
Yeah, how many people can say that?
How many people can say that, right?
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, again, it's everything you do in that, right? It's, I mean, how many people can walk around the halls and, like, there were aides running up and down here and saying, you know, the Japanese just bombed Pearl Harbor, right? It's like, how many, you know, or, you know, this is, you know, Kennedy was shot. Or you can go back even further. Lincoln was shot, right? Like, or hey, the British are outside.
Yeah. And, you know, when you're working in the same office, hey, you know, President Lincoln, you sit right there.
Yeah,
you know,
that's got, right? That's got to have an effect on you.
Awesome to that.
Yeah.
You know, every president except for Washington sat in this office. It was like, jeepers.
Yeah, that's got to, right? That's got to get you
never
going.
get that.
Yeah.
So you don't lose. I guess I never lost that.
Yeah.
Awesomeness feeling, you know, that you're part of that.
Yeah.
And you're just a tiny little speck of it.
But a part of it.
You're part of it.
Yeah.
You got to see things and do things that very few people get to, you know, percentage of people that do.
Yeah.
So.
That's got to be, I mean, I got to imagine that like elevates you to another level, right? I mean, even in middle school, I remember playing basketball, and it's like you can, you know, practice as hard as you want and learn to, you know, get better cardio capabilities. But it's like when it's like a home game and all your friends are cheering, like you just bump it up to another level that you didn't know was possible. I imagine working in the White House, there's got to be some like energy reserve that you tap into, because it's just like, you know, like these halls aren't for losers. Like, this is the apex of the world, right? It's, you know, Truman walked up and down here, right? Eisenhower walked up and down here. Like, it's, you got to tap into something deep. Yeah.
You know, that way when you go up on the Capitol Hill and that too, or any of those buildings. One of the crazy things during Civil War, right across the street from the White House on the west side on 17th Street was the jail where they kept senior ranking Civil War Southern officers.
Jesus.
You know that?
No, that's got, yeah.
And I had no idea. We know now it's just an office building of some kind.
Yeah.
But they've got a little room down in the basement where one of the cells, you can walk down in there and see what the cells look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't realize that was here.
Yeah.
And then you walk to the end of that hallway, there's this big steel door. You open that steel door and it's a tunnel underneath the street that goes to the White House. President Lincoln used to walk across that tunnel and come over and BS with the soldiers that were in the jail.
Just come over and talk shit.
You know? Yeah.
That's
you know,
insane.
Like little stories like that. You can't.
FDR had a ramp, obviously in a wheelchair. FDR had a ramp that they built a special tunnel because they had a bunker under the White House that was, I think, fully built for the first time for Truman. But a couple of years prior, they realized they didn't have something like that. So what they did is they built a ramp under the, if I remember correctly, under the White House. I don't know how long this was or if it was a series of ramps, but it went to the Fed. It went to the Treasury or whatever, because they figured, they're like, hey, that vault that they have, it's better than any bomb shelter we have. So it's just like, that's another weird is, and the company that made vault doors, it's called the Mosler Safe Company, Mosler, if I recall correctly. FDR was like, so they had this, like, you know, their Secret Service was like, we're going to roll you down this ramp. And they specifically made it a ramp. So even if we're all dead, you can roll down, you go into this vault where all, you know, gold is. But the Mosler Safe Company was also, is an international company. They made some of the vault doors for banks in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And part of it was a, you know, granted a little morbid, but their selling point is like, owners of these banks that did survive, they were like, hey, you know, despite the fact that 150,000 people were just killed. They're like, for whatever it's worth, none of the papers in here even got wrinkled. And so the Mosler Safe Company, they went out in the late 40s, if not early 50s, to the Nevada test site, and they took these bank vaults and they'd put them out there, because you know how they construct all these towns and stuff to see how nuclear effects had different effects on different timber. They tried different wood, different paint. Did it reflect the thermal pulse? The Mosler Safe Company went out there and they were like, hey, let's build this safe, and they put in all these documents. And so, of course, it's the 40s, so it's this ornate, almost like Victorian safe, and the blast goes off, and obviously it like destroys all of like the engravings and the ornate little pieces of decoration and whatever. But the inside of it was absolutely fine. Like, there was like chinaware inside, papers. And so they used it as an advertisement stunt. And this is all in Raven Rock, the book I'm going to send you. They used it as like an advertisement stunt. They're like, hey, look, like, a nuke can go off a mile away. Well, the government looked at it and they were like, hey, do you want to make bank doors, or do you want some lucrative government contracts? So the Mosler Safe Company started making all the vault doors for all the bunkers, all the continuity of government COG bunkers, including the big doors in NORAD, Mount Weather, the Greenbrier Hotel, Raven Rock, Site R. All of these things, Mosler made the doors for them. And that's how they started to get their money, because they realized, they're like, hey, these guys know how to make a door that will survive a nuclear blast. I don't know how I got on that tangent, but yeah. Little side story.
Yeah. Well, that's a good story.
Yeah. It just.
Where's the company located? Are they still in business, do you know?
Mosler, I would imagine they're still in business. I don't think they ever stopped building those things. I think the ones we know about are the ones that are defunct. I don't think they ever stopped building them. There's
have to look that up.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to find out.
It is an incredible book. It's insane, but yeah.
So, what title is that? A code line or something, or a code name, or what?
Raven Rock? I believe it's the code name for what it is. It's the actual, I guess, bunker or facility. It's called Site R, SITE space R, Site R. I think it was like the newer iteration of Mount Weather. I think it was closer by. I don't remember what it was for, but it's called Site R. And I think their logo was like a raven, and so it kind of became known as Raven Rock. But that's just the name the guy chose for the book. But the book is about like nuclear bunkers and its continuity of government, how the government survives in the case of all the backup governments, like the B team, the C team, the order of succession, documents, saving money so that in a post-nuclear world they could start to have currency again. The post office was supposed to act as it would carry out the dead. It would go around and they would deliver like vaccines in case of like biological warfare. It's all this crazy stuff, and a lot of double uses. The freezers and the bunkers would double as morgues, or so they could put the bodies in there without having them rot. It's insane. The Greenbrier Hotel, which was for Congress, it was and no one knew about it until it was declassified, but it was a bunker for Congress, hiding in plain sight, that they could go to, and they all had their own cot. They all had their own desk with their name on it. And that, like you said, it's all, the more important guys had bigger desks with bigger, shinier plaques. They kept all their prescriptions there. Back into the 70s. I mean, what are you on? Are you on this antibiotic? Are you on this heart medication? They kept like a year's worth of their medications there. And then when someone would get voted out and a new senator or congressman would come in, they'd switch everything. They'd have all their documents there. They'd have changes of clothes so that when they came on, they could take off their irradiated clothes and burn them. And there was even a stash of alcohol. In case of any alcoholic senators needed to be weaned off. They can't have someone going through delirium tremens in a nuclear war. And then there was also a lot of birth control and condoms, because they were bringing secretaries out there, and these people weren't stupid. They're like, all these guys cheat, and they all have mistresses. It's a crazy book. I think you would love it. I love it. I've never once introduced that book to someone who's not enjoyed it. It is, you don't even have to be a big fan of this stuff. It is so wildly interesting. It's I think you'd love it.
Well, definitely got my interest in it.
Yeah, it's and especially all the communications and stuff, the flash, the different levels of the backbone. It's all insane. It's I'll text the link to you. But you and I we just did another 2 hours, man. We did back-to-back 2-hour podcasts. Hey, well, that's a sign of a good podcast is when I can talk to it, because I normally start to burn out around an hour. The fact that you and I have done back-to-back 2 hours, man, that means you're a good guest. For whatever it's worth, that means you're a good guest. But
thanks.
Yeah, let's I'm gonna send you that list of guests that you mentioned to me yesterday.
Yeah, I said I was going to give you that today. I promise you, I'll get that in the email.
No
email
rush.
that to you.
No rush. No rush at all. I was just gonna, get the ball rolling. And like I said, for every 10 guests I ask, one says yes. So I mean, if I can even get one of those guys, I would love to get all of them. But I mean, it's no rush, man. It's do it whenever you want. I don't want to make it chore.
Yeah. Well, if I don't do it right away, I'll forget it.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna hold you to it. I'm gonna make you do it right away.
But hold me to it, and I'll get it. If you haven't got it in 48 hours, send me a signal. I'll remind you.
I will. I absolutely will. And so everyone listening to this one, go check out the episode yesterday. We talked about your time in Vietnam as a pilot. And we're at 1:59:32. We got 26 seconds left. I'm going to push it to where we have 2 hours. We got to do it. We're so close. So there are people that donate to the podcast, and I decided yesterday I was going to start reading them out. Right now there are 3 people that donate: Kyrell, AJ, and Garrett. So shout out to those guys. And we're running down the clock. We got 6 seconds left to go for 2 hours.
All right, very good.
Blah, blah. No, we can't go yet. You can't go yet. 2 hours. Now we're good. Now you can go. Mr. Beckenhauer, thank you so much, sir. I'll send you a link when it's up, probably be up tomorrow, and I'll send you a text right now so that I follow up with you on those guests. And thank you so much for coming on, man. And those are some awesome stories, and I definitely hope to have you on a third time sometime if you can scrounge together some more stories.
Yeah, I can talk about retired life.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm down for that. That's why I tried to get on General Mattis. I wrote a letter to his secretary, and I asked if General Mattis would come on and talk about retirement. And she said that he was
now. He's not holding any office anywhere or any place.
Nope. He's probably got a cushy job.
Executive board level, making $400,000 a year, doing nothing.
Just doing nothing, just waving. Probably good for him. I would too. So I can't fault him. But Mr. Beckenhauer, thank you so much, sir. And as always, everybody, God bless America. Stay safe, love each other, and thanks for watching. You have a good one, man. Bye-bye.